The air at the restaurant was thin, cold, and smelled of expensive perfume and betrayal. I sat at the table with my parents, Robert and Elena, and my two sisters, Claire and Julia. They looked like a portrait of perfection, but their eyes held a sharpness that cut deeper than any blade. When I asked about the wedding, my mother leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that echoed across the table. She told me I was no longer family. Just like that, the bond was severed, discarded like trash on the sidewalk. They handed me an envelope, a formal notice of disownment, expecting me to shatter. My sister Claire held up her phone, waiting for the tears, the outburst, the moment of weakness. But they didn't know that my silence wasn't fear, it was the final calculation of a woman who had already secured her freedom. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. For years, I had been the family's secret foundation. While they painted a life of luxury and status, I was the one working through the night, coding the architecture for my platform, Mindstream. They called me the useless daughter, the one who couldn't keep up with their social climbing, never realizing that the revenue flowing into my accounts had already surpassed their wildest dreams. 2 years ago, when Julia needed capital for her boutique, I provided it. I didn't do it out of love, I did it as a business transaction. I drafted a contract, notarized it, and secured her luxury car as collateral. I set the terms for a total breakdown of trust. When they signed that document of disownment, they unknowingly gave me the legal weapon I needed to terminate their comfortable world. I sat there, listening to their insults, knowing that the red button on my phone was the only thing standing between their lifestyle and absolute ruin. The day of the wedding arrived, a flawless coastal affair that looked like a scene from a dream. The guests were wealthy, influential, and entirely unaware that the stage they were standing on was about to be burned to the ground. I walked in, not as the guest they didn't want, but as the creditor they couldn't ignore. The atmosphere shifted the moment I stepped onto the terrace. Their smiles turned to glass. I walked toward them, the disownment notice folded in my hand like a badge of honor. I took the microphone, and the silence that followed was total. I didn't come to cry, I came to audit. I laid out the truth of their financial history, the foreclosure I stopped 5 years ago, and the loan I had officially revoked. I watched the color drain from their faces. The tragedy wasn't my presence, it was the reality that their entire existence was built on the money they had spent a lifetime trying to hide from. Serafina tried to play the victim, her tears a pathetic attempt to regain control as her guests looked on with growing horror. She claimed I was jealous, that I was a bitter sister trying to ruin her day. But the truth is a hard thing to suppress once it is laid bare. A guest, a woman who had featured Serafina in her own fashion columns, stood up and challenged her. She asked why the supposed independent businesswoman was caught in such a web of deceit. My revelation had shattered the illusion. The guests weren't looking at a bride anymore, they were looking at a fraud. I watched as the walls they had built around their reputation crumbled. I didn't need to scream or shout. I simply walked away, leaving them to pick up the pieces of a life that was already forfeit. The legal notices were already in motion, and there was nothing left for them to say. The aftermath was clinical. The wedding was cancelled before the sun could even set on the reception. The boutique collapsed under the weight of the debt, and the luxury car was seized and auctioned off within days. My father, Robert, saw his reputation shredded at his university, and the house they held so dear was listed for sale before the month ended. They lost the symbols of their status because they assumed I was powerless. They treated me as a liability, never realizing that I was the only thing holding their world together. When I received the final updates from my lawyer, I didn't feel a surge of victory. I felt a profound sense of peace. I sat at my desk, the glow of my monitors reflecting in the window, and returned to my work. My platform was growing, my life was my own, and for the first time, I was truly, completely free.